It's the 4020. Phil's gone. He's gone. 4020 Christmas podcast. Phil's got a jumper on. We've got a mince pie. What's going on, Phil? What's going on?
I've got a Christmas jumper on. I was just showing off.
It looks a bit like that Rugby League shirt we've got there, doesn't it? Really, doesn't it? What's this? Wales Rugby League. Maybe they could bring out the Wales Rugby League shirt.
Didn't Wakefield wear a kit a little bit like this for one Boxing Day game?
Yeah, one of the before pay-per-view had been invented, so we didn't have to pay to sit at home and watch it. But probably worth thousands of pounds now. Well, they would be. Phil, as soon as I don't turn up, the studio's full of people. What's going on?
It's our Christmas party.
Where's my invite? What happened?
Well, you were so busy putting our name forward for a podcast nomination that we're all here waiting for you.
Oh.
Watching the party has started without you.
James Child hidden by a mince pie.
I would say improved by a mince pie.
I feel very overwhelmed because I am I write the TV column in the magazine, but I'm like not even the best TV review in the magazine, Martin. So Martin Kellner's here from 4020 magazine and everything else.
You are. I sort of review my barber rather than reviewing the TV or review something I've seen on Twitter. I very rarely review the TV because I know you do it, and thank you for the mention. I appreciate it.
You do it on the radio. You did it in the papers for years. I feel like I need some tips from you, but we'll probably come to that later if we get the time. And Peg Alexander, how did you end up here?
Yeah, very good question.
She's come to talk to Phil about a book, and just happened to pick today, or I picked today. So, so she wanted to be introduced to Phil.
We both are in for her rugby league knowledge, which is on a par with the rest.
Which is, I only have one rugby league story, and we'll save it. So the nearest I get is that I grew up in Headingwood. Does that count?
I think so. I mean, this is not going to be a rugby league show, is it, Phil? There's nothing to talk about in rugby league. We could talk about the world rankings, but they're a bit boring, aren't they?
I think the only thing to talk about is Jack Wellsby re-signing for St Helens, which is great for the game over here. Typically, the Aussies are saying that he's got a lack of ambition not to play in their competition, but captain of England in 2 of the 3 tests, 22 years old, won just about everything. To recommit to playing over here is fantastic. Almost as important as the news that St Helens have decided to renew their dual registration agreement with Swinton.
Have they?
Yes.
Oh,
so you never know, Jack Wellsby could be turning out for Swinton.
Well, I want to know if he is Mark Wellsby's son, and I've put this on Twitter before now, because it's like Mark Wellsby played for Swinton for a while, and he played for Wigan for a bit, and I can't. You think somebody on Twitter somewhere with all my followers will come and tell me, is he Mark Wellsby's son?
Well, everybody has a quiz at Christmas. Ours is.
Yeah.
Who is the father of Jack Wellsby?
Yeah. And does he know?
That was often asked at me. Do you have a father? In a different sense.
So how are we all preparing for Christmas? That's far more important than...
Obviously, this is part of the podcast, so it's just idle chit-chat.
This is how we're wrong.
Right. Well, I'm preparing for Christmas by having all my children. I was only 4 of them, but it's still a fair number, and various partners at our house. So my wife...
Various partners of your children as opposed to your various partners.
Yeah, that's various partners of my children at the house. So basically, my wife is preparing the fatted calf for everybody. Vegan, vegetarian, she been going to make a rice pie for the vegan in the family. Rice pie, that's too much, really. But there you go.
Well, that's pie and tinsel. You've got a huge dining table.
Well, we've got an extender, like the classic, thing that's arriving tonight. That's coming from Stephen's mum and dad. They're bringing that round, so that'll be extending the table to get into the drill. So I've got my parents and Stephen's parents, my brother and Alice. Stephen and I, so it'll be a nice Christmas day.
And you won't have to worry about officiating Boxing Day or early in the
Boxing
morning.
Day, yeah, Boxing Day was always a sort of an option for full-time referees. If you wanted to officiate on Boxing Day, you could. And those who really wanted the cash in hand, they'll stick their hand up. So Ben Taylor always likes a game on Boxing Day.
Hasn't been announced yet who the referee is.
Yeah.
Heavily
So whoever runs out on Boxing Day, you know that they're going. A, they don't want to be in the house with all the rest of the family. And B, they want the cash in their pocket.
Yeah, that works well. I mean, it often works like that in radio. I bet you've worked over Christmas, Ben.
Oh yeah, loads and loads.
And at the BBC, we used to get like double pay.
But speak for yourself, Martin.
Yeah, well,
That's
yeah. Yeah, but at Talk Sport, you get the same scabby fee that you get. You get the rest of the year.
Is that the same fee that we get for doing this podcast?
You've got a mince.
But yeah, so at Talk Sport, I didn't put my hand up to do Christmas Day this year. They'll probably get Simon Jordan in to do it at double his already extensive fee.
I was going to say, rather scurrilously, the best of Simon Jordan, but what they do after 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, you could say that. I couldn't
He'll
possibly
sue.
comment
He'll
on
sue.
that. Yeah.
I couldn't say that when he works for the other company I work for, Phil. So you don't get me in trouble.
Got away with it. But have you got a million people around in your home?
No, I'm going away, actually. I'm going to my brother's. You know what? This is typical of me. I do quite a lot of these kind of panel things and contributor things. And it's amazing the stories that you drench up from somewhere in the brain. So I'm going to my brother's house. And here is a very vague rugby league connection, because I think he did the music for one of the Rugby League World Cups many years ago. I'm vaguely thinking that. We'll have to check it out which one it is. So I'm going.
2015.
So I'm going to his house with his family, and it'll be lovely.
What was the tune? I mean, do you remember?
Do you know what? I can't remember. I think Carol Decker sang it. Is this ringing the bell with anybody?
Carol
Or is it
Carol
complete?
Ow.
Yeah.
Or is it the complete figment of
No,
my imagination?
Sounds very Rugby League.
Yeah.
It's a quiz, isn't it? That's
Just
a
two
good question.
That's
It's two questions, yeah.
Neither of which we know the answer.
Which I'm actually sure is true. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story, as they say.
You mentioned television. I'm going to throw something in here, probably for Martin to kick us off with.
Yes, go on.
Spotty, is it still relevant? I mean, we had all of the Twitter.
No, I mean,
Twitterati of Rugby League going,
Yeah.
we only got 15 seconds. I don't know how much they think.
Well, they never did used to get much, did they? I mean,
Derek Belmont had his leopard suit on. What more do you want?
yeah, what more? No, I think Spotty is too much like Strictly Condensing. I mean, it's all about the glitz now. It's a sort of standard BBC end of year. I mean, they do it very well in terms of the glitz, but very little to. I don't think any sports fans. I mean, if you were a true sports fan, Chelsea versus Newcastle was on either TNT, because it was Carabao Cup, so that was on there. You really wouldn't. I didn't stick with. I watched the start. I watched Spotty mainly for satirical purposes. I'm sure you do, Richard. And then so watched a bit of that, then switched over and watched the Chelsea match. Which was quite exciting because they equalised late on. Kieran Trippier, who seems to make a habit of now, made. Can we talk about football? We can talk about football, can't we?
Talk about whatever you want.
Who's making a habit of making disastrous mistakes towards the latter end of matches. So then I turned back, not to see who won it, because she was 1-10 to win it, Mary Earps.
Mary Queen of Stops. Come on.
Mary Queen of Stops, if you like. I don't see that. It's. I always think, I don't want to get all Joey Barton about it, but she was on the losing team, and not just a losing team. We lost fairly handsomely to Spain. They beat the hell out of us, really, in that.
But she's fantastic, though.
She's fantastic as a person. Yeah, she's a personality. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
But so is Ronnie O'Sullivan, and Ronnie O'Sullivan is a champion. And he wasn't even. Why should the BBC decide that we're not allowed? We're not allowed to vote for what you're saying. Snooker's not a sport.
It's a game, isn't it? Controversial.
Well, yeah, because it's controversial.
Very controversial.
A lot of people say women's football isn't a sport. It's a way for the nation to tackle obesity amongst young girls, encourage them to play football, and God bless them for it. But I quite enjoy it. It's a different than men's football. It's a less physical less fast game, and
arguably more skillful.
It's not as much kicking into the crowd.
It's quite enjoyable. It's enjoyable to watch, but it's not. I wouldn't have said that the goalkeeper. I mean, she's goalkeeper as well. They're not. There is a famous quote. I can't. When somebody, I can't which goalie it was, but you know the tradition now is for goalies to play the ball out. And the first, the goalie starts the attack basically. And there was some goalie.
I think it was Schmeichel started, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really. So some goalie was trying to start the attack, and somebody else lost the ball, and a goal was scored, and somebody said, "He's a goalkeeper. He shouldn't be playing football. They're not footballers. They're goalkeepers."
A bit like referee. You have to have a certain psychological profile to want to be a goalkeeper. I think Louis McCarthy Scales, his column in the Forty20, which is his life story, which I think is really interesting, was a goalkeeper until he was about 15. And as he said, I love being a goalkeeper because I was tapped. A bit like referee.
Oh yeah, you've got to have something wrong with you to be a referee, without doubt. Some have more wrong than others, but you've got to have a screw set of those somewhere.
Are you a sports personality fan? Did you sit
there? No, I've not watched it.
Hours?
No, I've not watched it for years. And it's just the same old thing, isn't it? No, never. No. You won't invite a referee. You won't invite a referee for?
No, you wouldn't invite a referee. Not.
Well, the sport's going to be about the participants, not the referees. That's the serious for a second. It's not about the referees. So, rightly so, to be honest. No, I've never been. My dad's been in the, when I don't know if it's still done in an arena.
No, it was done that. I think was it Salford.
Salford.
Okay, yeah. My dad's been in the years when it was an arena,
and Leeds
enjoyed it.
That was Leeds arena, isn't it?
But I don't watch enough sport. I'll be honest. I just about watch 2 games of rugby league a weekend, and I don't always do that. So
I don't tell the audience that. They think you're an expert.
Well, I'm watching it all the time, obviously. Because I do the theatre. I very rarely get to. I usually watch something for the purpose of coming up with a joke, and Gabby Logan's microphone went. Which I didn't get to do this on TalkSport, so it's an exclusive. But Gabby, it's not very exclusive. But basically, because it was all the glitzy thing, it started with a bit of a DJ set by Pete Tong. And then Gabby Logan's microphone went off. And I thought, it's all gone Pete Tong. Thank you.
It's worth waiting.
It's worth it. Boom, tish. But there you go.
In terms of question of sport, that's now been banished to the internet.
Well,
I mean, again, does that sit alongside sports personality being an anachronism these days?
It does. It does. I mean, they could have, if they kept it going as it was with Sue Barker. I don't see why they didn't. There is a lot of ageism at the BBC. I'm not just saying this from my point of view. What I'm saying is, in America, you get these guys. There was a guy called Don Imus, who was a very famous DJ, and he carried on doing his show till he was about 80 on. It was a network show in America on the radio, and did TV as well until he died, more or less. And in America, bizarre, and Barbara Walters is another one who did a show for ages and ages and ages, and they don't. Whereas here, the BBC is a very ageist organisation. I don't know whether they're ageist, because we had all the rows about, I've forgotten her name, but I think she did a gardening show, a country father type show, and she got this, I can't remember, what was she called? I can't remember, but anyway. The BBC is very ageist, which is bizarre because they're so careful not to be any of the other ists, but ageist they are.
So talking of presenters of sports programme,
yeah, why wasn't Sue Barker presenting it?
Phil Clark has stepped down from Sky Sports after 24 years.
But that would be his choice, wouldn't it?
Well, was it his choice or their choice? Well, we haven't. But that's probably a signal that they're going to change their presentation style. Do we miss him?
Well, Phil was one of the regular guest contributors that we had. Was always sort of had a bee in his bonnet about refereeing. But he has done a referee's course. So. But I suppose, like any of them, sometimes I do think they say things to be controversial. And you know, I thought he added value. I think one of the things that he probably won't be remembered for was the something ometer that they
Margin meter, the margin meter.
Margin meter,
I
yes,
think
I
it lasted a
remember
matter
that,
of
yeah.
weeks, and it got absolutely panned on social media.
Yeah.
But you know, I thought he was pretty good, to be fair.
I think he was a good pundit. And I think the margin meter, remember the margin meter? It's one of those gimmicks they bring in from time to time. Like in cricket now, you get they tell you there's a little graphic that tells you what the likelihood is of the team that's batting reaching reaching the required total. And at ITV, Richard, you'll remember this, used to have the tactics truck with
Andy Townsend.
Townsend in the tactics, which was absolute nonsense. But these gimmicks don't last very long.
The Pegs, who are your favourite presenters of sport?
Of sport.
Because I know you're a consumer of sport. Wrong shaped ball.
Wrong shaped ball, but not so much on telly, really. More radio, really. So I'm just kind of, I mean, the question of sport, you know, instantly I would turn over because.
Was there a time you ever watched it?
No, but to be honest, middle-aged men say making the same jokes over and over again.
Oh, no, it's on. It's all got it's on.
You know, not really up my street.
Don't like the bounce.
I'll be on question of sport. It wasn't really bounce, was it? It was just.
Were they trying to be in league of their own?
Yeah, you see now I was quite involved when all of that sort of stuff came out, and when when I know it's old hat, but when Skinner and Baddiel started off doing stuff, I was actually on the committee of the Football Supporters Association many years ago. Oh yeah, I mean, in fact, I gave Kev his job. I was on the interview panel, interviewed Kevin.
That's your radio show.
Yeah, well, Kevin Miles, who once did a bit of 606 and was fantastic. He got the best audience reactions, but he wasn't the name, so he never got, you know. And Kev Miles, fantastic player.
Hey, as a Leeds United fan,
Oh,
you must have listened to Radio Leeds' coverage, which over the years it's been unbelievable. Though we had Peter Drury, we had John Champion, we had the Welsh guy, what's he called? Linlaw.
Oh yeah.
What do you call him? He's the first
main football correspondent on Radio 5 at the moment. He was at
Radio Newcastle.
Oh.
Who's the
John Murray?
John Murray.
John Murray, correct.
One as well. He was at Radio Leeds with us. Oh yeah, we've had fantastic.
Oh, Radio Leeds was supreme. Peter Drury, John Champion, and Bryn Law. Just three of them. Bryn Law, I think.
Double Upton in
I don't remember Double Upton. It was before I moved to Leeds.
The commentator before the one that we've got now, it was nationally.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's not Bryn Law. It's the other one. Yeah, that's very coherent.
Yes, I know the guy.
Yeah.
So Radio Leeds has contributed loads, and also if you look at Radio Yorkshire, Richard,
a fine station.
Fine station, Radio Yorkshire. Mark Wilson is now doing loads of stuff for Talk Sport, where he does most of the rugby league.
He's doing the darts.
And he's doing the darts this week, and does football as well.
His darts are sport. You dissed snooker, but
no, darts and snooker are great sports.
Games.
No, sports.
I did go and see the darts actually. I have a friend.
Monopoly is a game. Scrabble's a game.
I have a very, very close friend who has motor neurone disease, and when he first got diagnosed, we didn't think he was going to make it then about Christmas, and in fact they had to pull him back a few times. He went downhill so quickly. So after he did make it, and that was about 6 years ago, and he's still going strong. We were out just last week, and he decided we can do loads of bucket. I have to say he's a Villa fan, so at the moment you can imagine how excited he is because he's thinking, and he's getting to all the Villa games and everything. It's quite a feat for him to get to the games, the amount of equipment and all of that kind of thing he has to go. But not long after he decided he was going to have it on his bucket list, we we're going to go to things we've never been to. Mention the darts. At Aaron's Road, right? And I have to say, it was one of the best nights.
Oh, it was good.
Fantastic night.
I didn't know they'd done one, did
the pavilion?
In the pavilion, yeah. And so, you know how when they all come out to their walk-on songs and they've got the music, And obviously I knew nothing about any of them, but I decided which ones I liked straight away. And I'm stood there in the queue, they all walk past, and I'm stood there in the queue trying to shake their hands and getting really, really excited. And I didn't even know who they were. But what a fantastic atmosphere it was. I'd recommend it for anyone.
I went to see it at the O2, not the O2, what's it called in these? First Direct. Yeah, I went to see it at the First Direct Arena when it was the Darts Premier League, I think, whatever they call it. Because they have a league, don't they now? And yeah, great night. Although the First Direct Arena, my advice is take your own soft drinks in with you, because it's like about a £5 for a Coke.
Trying to pick a mix.
Yeah,
it's about the year's salary for a bag of pick and mix.
Yeah.
But I loved how egalitarian the dance was. Do you know what I mean? It felt like the players were really kind of connected with all the people there, and even though they were big stars and they were having this big kind of build up as they walked out and walked through, it really felt like there was this proper connection.
Yeah. I'll tell you what the most egalitarian sport is, apart from rugby league, which is the most inclusive and all that. But for egalitarianism, horse racing, if you go to
because everyone's posh.
No, well, that's the whole point. There's not everyone's posh at horse racing. You will find that there'll be people who are posh because they're wearing Barber jackets and green wellies and all that. And they'll be mixing with people like me, who are not posh at all. And that's horse racing is a very egalitarian sport, because at the end of the day, you're all rooting for some four-legged animal. The horse circles don't even know they're in the race. They have no idea. They know they've got to get somewhere fast, but
Do you know what? I worked in a betting shop when I was a student, actually. That was everybody else was a waitress or worked behind bars or whatever, and I worked in a betting shop, which was.
Are you chalking up the odds?
No, I wasn't, just behind the tills, but it was fantastic. And actually, had I been able to do, because in those days it was still done in fractions, and it wasn't, they had to settle up all the things by hand. They had one of those kind of old abbey machines and they'd sit and tap. And had I been better at fractions, I might have even applied to go on the kind of management program when I finished college.
The John Rich.
Yeah, so but I was going to say, apart from that, all my horse racing knowledge comes from Jimmy Cooper books. But bringing it back to sports, football, exactly. That's what I was going to say. So when the book is out, it's called Shoot.
Knocks around with
Shoot with Dale Vince. And Dale Vince, who owns Forest Green Rovers.
And they've got this interest in football, and he's written a thriller, which is apparently exactly the same as Riders, only where it said horse racing.
Yeah, but that's what she does. And she does it very well.
Yeah, she's got a program on a computer where she just says,
she writes them by hand, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, pen and paper.
The Boxing Day, the tradition of great sport. Batley Juice playing again this Boxing Day. You'll be there on the terraces.
No, I won't be there.
You'll be there.
No, I think the last time I went, I did a pitch inspection probably about 10 years ago. I didn't think I went to the game. But no, I won't be there. We've got a family meal on Boxing Day. But Dewsbury and Batley didn't draw each other in the cup, did they? So they won't play each other until later on in the season. So there might be a decent crowd there on Boxing Day.
Swinton Oldham is the traditional Swinton Oldham. I mean, for a while when I was growing up in the 1960s, we would play Salford on Boxing Day. But by the time we got to the 70s, Salford were way out of our league.
So I have a question for you. Because you just revealed when you used to watch rugby league.
Yeah.
There's a load of.
I've been a couple of times this season.
But when you first were, there's a load of conjecture about how lowering the tackle height will change the essence of the sport in 2025. But you will have witnessed the introduction of the limited tackle rule.
Yeah.
First 4 tackles and then 6.
Yeah.
How, as a spectator, did you feel when it was mentioned to you that the game was going to change from this unlimited tackle, stick it at the jumper and roll around in the mud for as long as you could before you gave it away, to a faster version? Different tactic. Were you in favour of that?
Very much so, because don't forget, then I was a young person, so obviously, it wasn't the stick in the mud attitudes that I've got now, and I'm happily a pensioner. So, in those days, I loved the idea. Having said that, I really one year we drew 0-0 with Widnes in the cup, and it was great. I mean, I loved it. You know, the fact that
Sounds like a thriller.
yeah, it was 0-0, and then in the replay we drew 5-5 with Widnes, and then we had to play on a neutral ground, and we went to Central Park, and we won 7-2. So 3 matches to get about 7.
3 tries. Yeah.
So yeah,
But change is inevitable in rugby league, and that was a huge one.
yeah.
But it didn't put you off being a fan.
Oh no, far from it. I loved Swinton so much because, you know, when I first started watching, that was when Swinton won the league, or in Division 1 2 years in a row. First we won Division 1, I think it was 62-63, and then we went against 63-64. And then I think we won the Lancashire Cup in 67, and that's the end of it. Apart from promotions,
You won a divisional final.
won
at
a
Old
divisional
Trafford.
final. And that was exciting, you know, in those days. But you know, when you achieve, well, especially when you move grounds, you know, because you move from you. I mean, I grew up at Station Road, so that's basically as much as my childhood home. Station Road was my childhood home. We moved from there to Bury, and I sort of got into it a wee bit at Bury. Well, quite a lot actually, you know, because we were a decent sort of second division side, and I think we won a promotion. Well, you mentioned it. But then when we started moving, I think we played at Moor Lane, Salford for a little while. Sale. Well, now it's at Sale, but now you move to the southern side of the south side of Manchester. It's never going to be the same. I mean, and I have huge admiration for Swinton fans who are historic Swinton fans who stuck with them. You know, they're working quite hard, aren't they, in the community? You know more about this than I do. But they do work quite hard on the sort of community side to try and make it catch fire a bit in Sale.
In terms of now you've had a chance to look at the proposals for how the game is going to change, most of it is unarguable because it's determined by insurance premiums and contact sport and modern world. Can you understand why people might be saying, "Oh, it'll be the death of the sport," when actually it never will?
That was always going to happen. You know, you turn to social media, people will always berate something, won't they? I think, I'm not sure if the delivery of it could have been done better, but I just think it's inevitable. I think it needed probably more voices to support just Gemma Phillips and JJB from delivering that message. I think it needed something more than that. And there will be pain. There'll be pain next year because I think it's coming in at Championship and League One level, is it?
No, coming in at reserve grade and the community game.
Yeah.
And then 2025 Championship.
There will be
professional.
There will be pain in the short term, as they were in the trials this year, I'm sure of it. But at least they've given them a year, the professional clubs, to, you know, to train and get used to it, and hopefully that will reduce the pain at first team level for 2025. Because I think it will be difficult for the referees, from a referee's perspective, applying the stricter guidelines around the ruck, and I think they'll have a challenge on their hands, particularly depending on how hard they go with the standing of the play the ball, attempt to play the ball with the foot rather, without then adding on top of that those measures as well. And I think there will be some changes in any regard, you know, with respect to foul play generally. In relation to the tackle line, that's a big change. But you know, I'm of the view that it was always it's inevitable, and if people look at the detail and understand it, then I think we would come to the same conclusion.
And if we do get a faster and more entertaining game, because there's more offloading, because you're hitting a lower tackle area, which a great ball player can get the ball out, then it'll be quicker and it'll be more exciting. But people like Peg will be begging to go to him.
I assume that initially there's going to be more stoppages because the players have taken a while to get used to it. And therefore, certainly if you're trying to clamp down on anything that play the ball, that's always a problem, isn't it?
There will be more stoppages next season anyway, because obviously they've changed the 6 again rule, so they've brought in penalties for 0 to 40 metres. So that will result in a stoppage of the game because of the penalty, kick to touch, etc. So that there will be more stoppages for that. There's potentially going to be more stoppages for incorrect play the balls if players are not making the attempt to play it. And yeah, in 2025, if players haven't adjusted to tackle height, then you could see more stoppages as a result of penalties for high tackles.
Do you think football's going to change irrevocably, because heading is obviously under this category of how often should you do it? Is it going to be a lost start? Would you bemoan the lost?
Oh, no, because I do think, we're getting so much evidence through now, aren't we, about the impact of heading. And so that, you can't argue with something that's now science has proven that potentially is dangerous for people. So I think you can't argue with it. I mean, for me, I just think that the only thing that was wrong when we changed it was that, I can't even remember if it was the silver ball, I think. Was it the silver goal? The one where the game stopped? Do you remember they did it one international court? So you had golden goal, didn't you? Where
I was seeing you.
yeah, so there was goal, and then there was a silver one, which was the minute someone scored, the game stopped, right? And I just thought you can't introduce rules that fundamentally change the emotional response of the game, which is with football until the final whistle goes. Right, until the final whistle goes. You've always got those sorts. I mean, I suppose everyone probably said something about the past that, but that was a great change, wasn't it?
That was a very good change.
Very good change.
You can imagine it
And
changing.
for Leeds United at the time, because remember John Lucas, you can
You can imagine that changing at junior level, and then even perhaps in training, which is some of the things they're looking at from Rugby perspective, aren't they? Is it just in the rules? I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody at work around their young boy that plays the community game and plays at a certain age group that will be unaffected by the switch to tag, but there will be children that will have probably done tackling that will have to go back and do tag before they come back to tackling their game, which is
Will improve that skill.
well, and I said that to them. I said my view on our community game is that we focus too much on the typical 13-a-side style game, and as a country we don't do enough tag, we don't do enough touch. When you look at Rugby League down under, I mean, touch is massive in Australia. It's on TV, and the speed and the skill that you see. I mean, players like Jai Field and Ben Friend,
Benji Mark.
they've come from that sort of background, light-footed, quick step, offload game, all that sort of stuff. It really is a skill. I would like to think
Velcro, is that
it will be that. So that will be the tag system as opposed to the touch. But
Not tag around your ankle because you've been like that.
I'll take mine off.
Although there are one or two rugby league players who have that.
but when you see the good touch players playing it on TV, they almost initiate the touch themselves to get a very quick play of the ball to recycle, and it's so fast. But it's all about the ball handling skills, and for me, I think some of those skills are lost by the focus being on how we're going to win the game and how we're going to make this tackle and all the rest of it. So I'd like to see the development of the basic skills, which I think it could help.
40-20, how about
Great moments of Wakefield history in the press room. Ryan Hampshire, some players in the dream team. Danny Kerman clapping. Tom Johnston's shirt. All, smiling. It's Paul, isn't it, really? Tom Johnston scoring a try. Reece Lynn playing for England. That was good. Spider-Man kit. The 1970 World Cup. Nickling that. Keegan Hurst. Craig Hubie. And the thing that says Super League. And of course, a Wakefield shirt signed by Wally Lewis, which is perfect for a team about to be relegated because he was in a team.
Here's a 40-20 attempt, and it's not bad.
Oh, he's got it.
Is. It's there. It just kept going and going.
Question Spot was rubbish. It was always rubbish. I'm convinced of that. So much so that when I looked in the Question of Sport quiz book, I could only find a couple of questions on rugby league. So instead, we got the Dickie Davies World of Sport quiz book because, of course, he died this year. So it's in tribute to Dickie that we've got this book, and it has rugby league in there. And I've got a short quiz for you. Would you like to play either where do they play, which none of these teams probably play where they did or do, or nicknames of clubs?
I'll say, where do they play? Because I know if you say the Boulevard, no problem.
Yeah, there's a history quiz as well.
This is from 1982. So
the year before I was born. Okay, yeah.
Right. I was born.
You've heard of the Beatles, James? They were before you were born. So cool. Number one, Castleford
Weldon Road
is the correct answer. Number two, Featherstone Rovers.
Post
Post office.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
3, St Helens.
Knowsley Road.
4, Batley.
Mount
Pleasant.
5, Doncaster.
Oh, now
They played a
1982.
two-round,
Yeah,
didn't
they
they?
have. 1982, Doncaster.
Tattersfield.
I was going to say Tattersfield because I went to Tattersfield and that would have been in the early 90s.
Where did they
I would
move
think.
to from Tattersfield?
They played at the football ground after that, so that would have been, what road would that have been? Something, was it?
Bellevue. Doncaster's Bellevue. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tattersfield, what a fantastic name that is.
Yeah, it was Tatty.
It was.
You have a dog?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bellevue had dog track, didn't it?
Sheffield with Howard.
There is a dog track in Doncaster, but I don't know where it is compared to where Tattersfield was. Halifax.
From Hall.
Of course, yeah.
From Hall.
Now, he was mentioned earlier.
Shady.
I think the most famous resident of this place was mentioned earlier in the podcast, but and I always get the pronunciation wrong. Huyton.
Isom. No, forgotten.
Old Park.
Old Park.
Yeah.
Warrington.
Wilderspool.
CBRE are selling that ground.
Really?
Yeah, the old ground. It's been demolished finally.
The snooker club still there? Is it gone? Is it gone now?
Oh.
Widnes.
Norton Park.
Wigan.
Central Park.
Now we're Tesco. Let's do the nicknames because these are very much things of their time. Some of these.
In there.
Why? We'll see what we've got. Let's go. Number 1, the Villagers.
Oh, Bramley.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Number 2, the Early Birds.
Oh, obviously.
Black and Whites is a rubbish nickname, isn't it? 'Cause it's just generic. 3, the Gallant Youths.
But I can't be everybody.
Well, no. The Gallant Youths.
I'm going to say that before I even start the quiz, but we've mentioned their ground.
Was it
Batley?
Batley, yeah. It is.
I wonder if people still say that. That's really old, isn't it?
That's what they were announced when I
Well,
was
Manchester City's nickname is the Citizens, but whoever calls Manchester City the Citizen.
Was it now the money?
The Loiners. Boo.
Oh,
That's harsh.
Ruffiads.
Ruffians. I love them.
Yeah.
Lions.
Hey,
Oh.
Swinson.
Oh, the Lions.
The Glass Blowers.
That would be St Helens.
Castleford.
is it
That's
Castleford? I
Castleford.
thought it was Castleford. Go Glass House.
Yeah, no, it was
Bill
Castleford.
Simpson's glass.
So why that? What's the
I was gonna say
explanation for that?
It was renowned for its glass.
What was it?
Castleford, yeah.
What was it?
Cas Vegas.
The Dreadnoughts.
Three. In deference to your good self.
I mean, they should long believed
Is that way?
Yeah.
So what's that?
Why are they called the Dreadnoughts?
after the HMS Dreadnought.
Ah, right.
Long is my belief that Danny Cole should be replaced by a bloke dressed as a big ship wandering around the pitch, but we're going to the new owner, see who can get that sorted. Robbins. Oh, that's easy.
Polka.
Still are, yeah.
And the Wires.
Warrington.
I mean, in fairness, you know, mentioning darts and other sport, it is in here, and this is a wonderful selection of sports that probably were on ITV at one point: fencing, greyhound racing. Of course, there's plenty of horse racing in there. Ice hockey, ice skating, motor racing, shooting, water polo. Don't know how many times that was on World of Sport. 10-pin bowling, trampolining, yachting. You know, you don't get that on Question of Sport, do you? With
Cliff diving was the famous one from World of Sport. 1 o'clock on World of Sport, where you got the third, you know, before the racing started and whatever. You got everything. They had that thing where they drove. There were a lot of truck-based sports from America. Basically, anything that been on the wide World of Sports in America was, was played on World of Sport.
And of course, the wrestling.
And the wrestling was at 4 o'clock.
I don't think there's any wrestling questions in there, which is quite surprising. But I guess, you know, sport.
This is like playing Trivial Pursuit with your family. You have to play Trivial Pursuit in the caravan back in as a kid. But
We just
the
need
entertainment questions were no longer entertainment; they were history.
we just needed 12 applicants before we even did that.
Have we got anything to promote before we end this Christmas extravaganza?
There's a new magazine. Well, I say new. It's been out nearly a week, but new magazine out. Perfect to sit by the fireside with your eggnog.
Yeah.
I should ask Martin, what should I watch over Christmas now? I've got no idea what to write about in the column next month.
It's a problem now. It used to be great. I was at every Christmas when I was doing it for The Guardian. I used to write about Cliff Richard's Christmas tennis tournament because of Sky. It's actually just fun to go to Sky Sports on Christmas Day. At least it used to be. I don't know whether it's the same now. Obviously with more American sports, they actually play on Christmas Day. But you always find something bizarre on Sky. Who's watching Sky Sports 3 on Christmas Day or whatever it's called? TNT. There'll be or racing. There's no racing on Christmas Day, so you'll probably find some bizarre race meeting from South Africa or something on the Sky Sports Racing channel. So there's all you'll find plenty to write about, Richard.
That's disappointing. Phil, are there copies of Martin's book available?
There are
One or two.
As we always say, it's now available in no good bookshops, apart from this one that we're sitting in now. That's the only
Where we
bookshop.
have more than one.
Yeah. As I was saying, Peg, I went into Waterstones in Wakefield and said, I'm a local author. Why don't you stock a few copies of my book? I said, I'll come and sign them or something. They'll sell a few copies, I reckon, not many, but they'll sell a few. And the guy, they said, it was some 12-year-old who was looking after it, was allegedly the manager of the shop. And he said, we'll get in touch with our regional people because they decide. So I sent an email to the email address that was sent me. And I said, look, I live in Wakefield. I can wander down to your shop, sign a few copies. A few people know me in Wakefield. Okay, I get stopped in a coffee house in Wakefield or whatever. And he said, oh, Martin Carl, a big fan. He said, I'm a huge fan. I used to read you in The Guardian every week, always listen to you on Fighting Talk when you're on, etc., etc. And I said, great. He said, but they won't stop. They won't stop your book because you're not famous enough, or it's not about cookery, or there's no murders in it.
So your next book's going to be about cooking and murder.
Cooking and murder. That's exactly it.
Just on the podcast vote, I couldn't vote.
No, I mentioned this to Richard.
Oh, it's fixed. They fixed it. They fixed it. They fixed it.
To the bottom.
You can vote now. They fixed it.
Oh, no.
Right, some assumed names.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting rid of all my friend. I got the guy in Waterstone still.
Peg, have you got anything you'd like to promote on this exciting podcast?
I've got another podcast which
There's not enough podcasts out there. I mean, until Jay Comfrey invented them, I don't know what people did.
But unfortunately, we're not award nominated at all. But
It's only a matter of time.
only a matter of time. But I do a podcast with. Actually, it all came out of Martin's radio show when you were on Radio Bates FM. What was the actual thing?
Yorkshire Radio.
Yorkshire Radio, okay.
The Radio. What was it?
It's Radio Yorkshire. There was a big legal case, and you have to call it Radio Yorkshire, otherwise Ken Bates gets sued.
Yeah,
No,
right. Yeah, it was Radio Yorkshire, okay, or Bates FM, which is what we said. And so I came down onto your show.
You did, yeah.
And I met your good friend Phil Turner in the radio studio. And then Phil sent me a message afterwards saying, do you fancy doing a podcast? And literally the first episode we did was only the third time we'd ever met. And me and Phil have now done quite a lot of episodes of this podcast, and it's very imaginatively called Peg and Phil, You Spin Me Right Round. And we talk quite a bit of nonsense stories, this and that about, we say it's an 80s music podcast and a sort of alternative 80s music podcast, but actually we cover loads of different decades, really. With loads of stories of the band, stories of what was going on, stories of people we've met, this and that about the songs, yeah. So our last episode, I think we covered everything from Orange Juice and Edward Collins through to the Proclaimers, to what's she called? Michelle Collins, who was Cindy in EastEnders sleeping in my bed. Not when I was in it, but I tell the story about that, which is linked to Mary Wilson. And loads of other things in between. So there you go. Have a listen to that if you want to waste half an hour.
Have you ever had someone famous sleep in your bed, but not when you're there? Sounds like a great radio topic, but I don't know how much.
You should make that.
Oh,
The whole podcast is slept in your
who
bed.
slept in my bed, but not when I was there. Yeah.
People, thank you for your time this Thursday.
Carol Borden slept in his bed when he wasn't there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
And you can't escape from her now. She's everywhere.
Is she more famous than Michelle Collins? Probably now.
very famous.
She's very famous.
Yeah.
I mean,
She's strictly accurate. Just for legal reasons, she's not on my bed as opposed to in.
and that clip of her as Cher on Stars in Their Eyes, that was. I don't want to go there.
In the eyes.
It's yeah.
Oh, do you know what? That's not fair, because if I ever went in Stars in the Eyes, I'd either have to do Cheryl Kirsten McCoy, and she's already done Cheryl. I'll have to take Kirsten McCoy, which is no hardness at all.
Hope and King,
Hope and King, such like that.
Frenzy Boss. You know the Hope and King Frenzy? Children's Garden.
Baby.
They were the
Were you there?
poor man smoking around.
No, I don't remember. I thought
They
Callum
usurped me
Paul-
from my bed.
I remember all.
Callum Paul-
Sleep in your bed.
No, but they were poor man's Morgan wise, but not as poor as my competitors. I did an OB with Bernie Winters and Schnorbitz.
Oh,
In
fantastic.
the early days of Radio Air, we did a thing it must have been a contract, but we did a thing at a car showroom down Kirksall Road, and it was Radio Air plus Bernie Winters and Schnorbitz. So how about that? There's a showbiz story to die for.
The glamour of
Yeah.
80s local radio. It's
Oh, yeah, it was. Some of the things we sponsored were ridiculous. We did a thing where we did an OB, and again it was a contra deal with somebody who was building some new houses, sort of Wortley or somewhere like that. And Alex Lester, who was my colleague in the early days of the radio, I went to do middle of the night at Radio 2. But Alex had to do this OB in the middle of a Saturday afternoon with like 3 people in front of him. He had all the disco double decks and all those sort of bloody things. And he, I think at some point while the record was playing and somebody was staring at him, he said, "Look, why don't you fuck off?"
Have you got a gig on Radio 2?
I think on Radio 2, but I'll tell you,
Have you ever tried?
what, being on Radio 2, yeah, I was on Radio 2 for a number of years.
Being forthright with your audience?
Not as much as Alex was famously bad-tempered, but a lovely, lovely guy, but he could be bad-tempered with the listeners. But he got into trouble. I'll tell you exactly what he got into trouble. I'll see if I can remember this. He was on, he was saying something on Radio 2 about a do he'd been to. And it was one of those standing up do's where you put your little canopy or whatever on it and everything. And there was peanuts and things there. And he told this story about being approached by somebody who was quite big at Radio 2 and making a fool of himself, because he said at the time I had a mouthful of peanuts, and somebody wrote in and said, "I don't expect to hear such filth on Radio 2 at 3 o'clock in the morning." And we had to reply, "No, a mouthful of peanuts." I've probably told the story slightly wrong, but
I think we
It
got
was good. We liked it.
Christmas. It's all about peanuts, apparently. I'm gonna have to put the explicit tag on the podcast now. That'd be great. I mean, that'll get us more listeners, because I think there's lots of swearing and stuff.
Yes, it was wrong.
So the only other thing I would say is that when it gets to the new year, I had this fantastic. This is my one rugby league story. Okay, so I'm
Oh yes, sorry, I forgot. Yes.
It's the only one I've
We're going
got.
to end on a high.
We're going to end on a high. So Yeah, so I was asked to go and be roving reporter, which is what I've done mainly for BBC Radio News at the Rob Burrow Marathon earlier this year. And I was there from 6 in the morning, and right from the start, it was really emotional. I was into Andrew Everett's show. Andrew, fantastic presenter, and I kind of pretty much cried a little bit through most of my lives that I'd done all morning. And the longer we went on, the more emotional it got. So when it got to the end, and it was about, I don't know, 3 o'clock or whatever time it was, when Rob and Kevin Sinfield were coming back into the stadium. You can imagine, quite tired, emotional, being there all day. I was the only live broadcaster, broadcasting live. It's just on a little iPhone. I had to try and push between people because I'm only small and there were lots of people stood in front of me. And I managed to be talking live on the radio, the only person at the moment at which they crossed the finishing line when Kevin Sinfield picked up Rob and carried him over the line, which was one of the moments of 2023, wasn't it? If the moment of 2023. And of course, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I burst into tears on the air again because I just thought it was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. So for me, when it gets to it gets to the end of the year and everybody shares their what's been the highlight of the year. I mean, I think that was the moment of the year anyway, and it certainly made me incredibly proud that I was in live broadcast there. And any excuse to burst into tears on air, really.
I was going to say a total lack of professionalism. You're supposed to be a professional.
Yes.
On an offshoot, CBEs, what a load of nonsense. Give them nightlets or don't bother.
Absolutely, I think that's what the rumours, CBEs. Oh, terrible. Absolutely.
You've got an MBE or an OBE. What's the difference?
I did once. So this is another stuff. But I once went to Buckingham Palace, and my dad when he got a CBE, and I was about 14, and I had a Mohican, and my mum made me buy a hat to wear because she was so embarrassed that I was going to go with this Mohican. So I went off and I bought this. She made me buy a proper outfit to go. So I went and bought this kind of very quite nice grey outfit, and I bought this little grey beret, and I said, "Sorry, Mum, I've got a hat to wear." And of course, what I did was I managed to backcomb all this orange fringe. So I've got this little grey beret on in the pictures, and this big, massive orange fringe stuck out the front of it in front of Buckingham Palace for a health program.
Yeah. Well, those of us of a certain generation didn't have a CBE, but we had a CBN.
What was the more use than CBE, to be quite honest.
On that political note, then, I think we're done, Phil, for the year. And James is now on board, which is exciting. That's why we got nominated for awards now.
So looking forward to Boxing Day, though. When Leeds take on Wakefield, will you be there watching your boys?
No, can you get us a programme? Because I don't want to pay a £5 on eBay.
Consider it.
Thank you. It's all the important things. Phil, thank you for the year. James, thanks for joining us. Worthy addition to the team. Martin, thank you for coming in. Peg, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
That's okay. And fingers crossed, Phil sorts a book out for you. And who's going to eat that mince pie? That's the question.
Oh, we got one each. Don't worry.
Oh, that's all right. I don't like them, so fine. Sod you.